Reports are currently circulating, which suggests the Philadelphia Eagles organization may be on the precipice of losing the services of their standout offensive guard, Landon Dickerson, with the potential for an abrupt, injury-induced conclusion to his career. The central issue revolves around a collection of physical ailments. There exists a prevailing belief that the athlete himself harbors significant doubts about his capacity to ever return to a state of full health that would permit a continuation of play at the professional level. To put it bluntly, this is a devastating development. It forces us into a complex and uncomfortable frame of mind, one that necessitates a clear separation between two distinct lenses: that of the fan concerned with the franchise's fortunes, and that of the human being observing a fellow person confronting a profound physical and personal crossroads. The immediate, instinctive reaction from a supporter of the Eagles might be one of tactical alarm. This is catastrophic for our offensive line, our performance is sure to degrade, and that assessment, from a purely football-centric viewpoint, holds water and is likely correct. However, to view this solely through that prism is to miss the more significant, human dimension of the story. This involves a young man, merely 27 years of age, who finds himself at a point where his own physical vessel might be signaling that it can no longer endure the brutal, week-in, week-out punishment that constitutes life in the National Football League. To be fair, this is a reality that has been vocalized by veterans who have navigated lengthy careers. Players like Jason Kelce, and while his brother Travis has spoken on related themes, Jason's experience in the trenches as a center makes his testimony especially resonant here, have been remarkably candid. Kelce has stated unequivocally that his body will never return to its original pre-football state, a declaration made even as he continued to perform at an all-pro level, competed in Super Bowls, and ultimately authored a storybook ending by retiring on his own terms. That haunting refrain, "never going to be the same," echoes with a truth that transcends the individual. This is a subject I find myself returning to frequently, largely informed by my own personal and extensive history with significant physical injuries. I have a clavicle that never healed correctly. I've endured multiple surgical procedures on my knee, alongside a litany of fractures to fingers and hands. One of the most irksome and hard-won lessons from this journey is the realization that the concept of a full recovery is, in many profound ways, a comforting illusion. It rarely, if ever, materializes in the way we imagine. You can ostensibly return to the field of play. You can test at 100% of your previous capabilities, matching your sprint times, lifting the same weights in the gym. An outsider, a coach, or a fan might look on and declare, "See, he's back, just as fast, just as strong." But internally, you are acutely aware. You are not the same. You are fundamentally altered. There exists a constant low-grade symphony of pain. There is stiffness that wasn't there before. The body's capacity to bounce back, to repair itself overnight or over a bye week is diminished. It is simply not quite the same. I can personally attest to this. From a pure strength metric, I can now lift weights comparable to what I managed before I sustained a complete, multi-part fracture of my collarbone. But the structure itself is permanently compromised. The bone exists in two separate pieces. I can state with absolute certainty, my shoulder is not the same. It is positively, undeniably different. To an observer watching me engage in casual activity, this disparity would be completely invisible. But the reality is inescapable to me. The same is true for my knee. It has not felt truly right or secure in many, many years. Therefore, it is profoundly difficult to know with any precision what Landon Dickerson is internally experiencing at this moment. Is the primary driver unmanageable pain? Is it a gnawing sense of structural instability in a joint, a feeling that something could give way at any moment? Is it the cumulative psychological weight of fragility? It's a strange and isolating reality. I can only extrapolate from my own medical consultations, particularly regarding my knee. If I were thrust into a scenario where I had to play football tomorrow, specifically in a role like offensive line, or even a sport like basketball with its cutting and jumping, I believe I possess the baseline strength, the cardiovascular endurance, the explosive power necessary to compete in short bursts. However, I have zero faith that the joint itself possesses the structural integrity to withstand the relentless, high-impact beating it would be forced to absorb. It perpetually feels as though I am one awkward step, one sudden twist, one unfortunate collision away from tearing it all over again. That sensation has been my constant companion since the very first time I tore my meniscus. I've often described it as feeling one slip away from disaster. Critically, and this is a point I must emphasize, this is not a mental block. This is not a failure of trust in the rehabilitated limb. I have had to repeatedly explain this to medical professionals and physical therapists. The apprehension is not psychological. It is a physical intuition, a feedback loop from a body that knows its own new limitations. And unfortunately, my lived experience has repeatedly confirmed this intuition, as I have suffered re-injury multiple times, despite rigorous rehabilitation. It wasn't a self-fulfilling prophecy born of fear. I dedicated myself fully to the recovery process, regaining strength and metrics. The body, once profoundly altered by trauma, simply operates under a new, more fragile set of rules. You almost require a catalog of significant injuries to truly comprehend this cumulative effect. A single, clean break that heals neatly in a cast doesn't provide the same frame of reference. It is through multiple surgeries, through comparing the sensations in one repaired joint to another, that this understanding deepens. Undoubtedly, some individuals do sustain an injury, undergo a procedure, rehab diligently, and return without any perceptible lingering effects. But the brutal truth of high-level sports, particularly football, suggests that more often than not, some shadow of the injury remains. It brings to mind a quote I have referenced often, one that resonates deeply because of its stark honesty. Travis Kelce once remarked that after numerous surgeries, not a single day passes where he is not reminded of each and every one of them by some ache or pain. I recall the moment I first heard that statement. It was a powerful moment of validation. It was an acknowledgement that this silent, persistent reality is shared even by those at the absolute pinnacle of the sport. Thus, this news regarding Landon Dickerson is a profound bummer, to put it simply. I am sincerely hopeful that he can find a path to continue his career, but there is an inherent strangeness to the situation. We live in an era of seemingly miraculous medical advancement. The treatments, surgical techniques, and recovery protocols are light years ahead of where they were even a decade ago. Yet, despite this progress, athletes still confront these absolute physical limitations. It's a tough paradox. It makes the continued durability of a player like Lane Johnson, who is also reportedly contemplating retirement, seem all the more remarkable and tenuous. For the Philadelphia Eagles as a franchise, the potential losses are stacking up. Their offensive line coach is gone, and now multiple cornerstone pieces of the offensive line itself may be exiting. This has the potential to slip from a routine offseason adjustment into a legitimate and substantial retooling phase of the roster's core identity. When you couple the loss of multiple starting linemen with the installation of an entirely new offensive coordinator and his scheme, the challenge becomes formidable. The central question is, how quickly can an organization successfully navigate such a significant turnover in foundational, synergistic units and reassemble them into a cohesive, elite engine capable of contending for a championship? This is not an instantaneous process. I am not suggesting it requires a 5-year rebuild, but it does demand time. My own analysis of the Eagles following their Super Bowl LVI victory placed them on a clear 3-year championship timeline. The mandate was to capitalize on that window and secure another title within that span. 1 year of that window has now expired, leaving a critical 2-year period. The complication is that this remaining window now appears to coincide with this period of substantial transition on the offensive front. We could be looking at a scenario where 3/4 of the starting offensive line are new faces next season. That introduces a tremendous variable. The margin for error in the NFL is infinitesimally small, and the offensive line is the beating heart of a team's operational capability. I've previously dissected the pivotal moment in the Eagles' playoff loss to the San Francisco 49ers, a moment rooted directly in an offensive line failure. On what would be the team's final meaningful drive, Jalen Hurts identified a lane and was on the verge of breaking a substantial run, likely positioning the Eagles for a game-tying or game-winning score. Instead, the play resulted in minimal gain because a single offensive lineman completely vacated his blocking assignment. The unblocked defender, consequently, was able to pursue and make the tackle from behind. That single isolated breakdown, was the direct demarcation between a likely victory in that game and the season's abrupt conclusion. When you zoom in and analyze that play, the implications are staggering. One player, in one moment, failing to execute one assignment, became the difference between advancing through the playoffs, where a matchup against a team like the Chicago Bears awaited, followed by a potential NFC Championship game, and an unceremonious wild-card round exit. The cascade effect of a single line play can literally alter the trajectory of an entire postseason. The full ramifications of Landon Dickerson's potential departure are therefore extensive and murky. We are operating without complete information, which is always the case in these early stages. My typical approach to content is not to engage in rampant speculation about medical reports or retirement rumors, as that terrain is fraught with unverified claims. However, upon seeing this story gain traction from preliminary reports and then get corroborated by established local outlets like NBC Sports Philadelphia, I felt it was a pertinent subject to address through a specific lens, not as gossip, but as a discussion point about the physical realities of the sport and the consequential roster mechanics for a contender. The sports media landscape is saturated with a style of coverage that closely resembles entertainment gossip. Breathless reports of turmoil and crisis, designed to generate clicks through alarmism. My aim is to steer clear of that. It is more challenging, but also more responsible, to anchor the conversation in verified reporting, while exploring the broader themes and football implications it presents. That is the attempt here. I am genuinely interested in your perspective on this format of discussion. Does this more contemplative, theme-based approach resonate, or do you prefer a more direct, news-reactive style? I make it a point to read every single comment. Whether you find yourself in agreement or vehement disagreement with my take, let's use it as a springboard for discussion. Let's have those debates, but let's keep the foundation respectful and focused on a shared passion for the game. If you are enjoying the community we are building here, please consider subscribing. It is your participation that truly shapes this space. We are working to create a platform where fans feel a genuine connection and excitement about engaging. Furthermore, if you found this exploration valuable, please do not forget to like the video, as that simple action significantly boosts its visibility within the platform's ecosystem and allows these conversations to reach a wider audience. Thank you sincerely for your time and engagement.